Hey everybody, so today we are going to get into the idea of drawing the still life in front of us, which is made up of mostly glass. Yes, they're glass objects on a table with some fabric underneath. We don't really need to worry about the fabric folds too much. We'll save that for another time. But as we look at the object, and I'm looking at the objects right now in front of me, I can see that it looks pretty complicated. Glass by its appearance seems like it's going to be a great challenge. But if we break it down into the objects themselves, we realize that it's actually made up of some pretty simple elements, that the objects themselves are represented with the color that you can see through in the fabric, but the outline will be defined by very, very light versions of those colors, almost white, what's behind it, or a really, really dark version. And you might even think of them as being white or black in terms of describing those edges, but also really trusting yourself in what you see so that the objects can be that idea of the illusion of three-dimensional forms in front of you, which play with what happens with distortion through glass, but also with shine. So I'm going to walk you through some ideas first. But before we actually get into the sketch and the painting, I want to have us think about what a cylinder is. And all of these objects in front of us are basically different kinds of cylinders. Yes, sometimes they open up wide, or sometimes they taper from a foot like on a wine glass and then get wider again. But I want us to think about what happens when we look at a form like this. If we are exactly on eye line with these objects, the top will be flat and the bottom will be flat. But if we are above these forms and we can see into it a little bit, there will be an ellipse on the form, and the higher we get, the bigger that ellipse will be. And if we were looking down the barrel, it would actually be a circle. And so if there's an ellipse at the top, there'll actually be an echo of that ellipse at the bottom. And that is something that will serve us well as we think about what's going on with these forms. Now, once we do draw these forms and then ultimately paint them, being able to see through them and what happens with those really weird shapes of light and dark that are happening through the glass. And that's where you really need to trust what you're seeing and understand why those shapes are occurring, whether they are kind of the shadow highlights or whether they are the highlights. So let's take a look, see what happens.